Michael Fulmer has shown you nothing to warrant being out there in high leverage moments. You have so many guys in this bullpen doing really good work. Brandon Hughes has looked lights out since he's come back and rejoined this team. Adbert Alzolay has been good. Keegan Thompson has been lights out. I just don't understand running Fulmer back out there. He should be in the lowest leverage roles right now until he proves otherwise. It feels insane to keep doing that.
Who else do you put in that situation? So for me, like, I don't have an obvious one. If seriously, for you, Corey, who would you rather take that 9th inning role right now? Alzolay? Keegan?
Anyone?
Anyone?
I mean,
Okay.
literally anyone but Michael Fulmer.
So, I mean,
he has like an 8.5 ERA, man.
I
like,
know.
You don't have the time for this. Like, if he's not getting
understand.
it done, you have to move on. This isn't, like I said, this is not a guy with a Hall of Fame pedigree here. Like, there's no reason to have this much deference to him.
This was the concern going into the year. You want a high leverage guy with a track record of getting swings and misses, right? They have a ton of potential guys, and I love that. I love their bullpen as a group. I love their depth. I love the AAA guys. I was a little aggressive going into the year. I'm like, you know what? Just call up Jeremiah Estrada from day one. Forget it.
Right.
Like, if you're going to try, you have to hit on all the margins for this team to make the playoffs, right? So you can have one idea with Fulmer and his new sweeper as being one of the extremes, or you just go with the established stuff guy in Jeremiah Estrada with that 80 grade fastball, which is like 100th percentile, and that like 70 grade slider, which is 95th percentile, and just go with it. I understand some of these guys are young, they need development time, but if you want to hit on the extremes, Jeremiah Estrada is the biggest extreme in that bullpen. Now, that's not realistic for many young guys and prospects, perhaps a little bit over ambitious. I understand that. So then you have to go to the alternative. And the alternative is you have Fulmer, you have Boxberger, you have Keegan, you have Alzolay. That's who you have to start the season. Hughes might be a guy. Hughes is a little bit, he's been awesome, but in terms of like a closer situation, that stuff is just not many guys have that type of stuff. So it's hard to project. So from the group of Alzolay, Keegan, Fulmer, and Boxberger, who do I like the most? I like Alzolay the most in that spot because he has a history of getting whiffs with that slider. So I would have preferred those two guys to get the initial opportunities. Yeah. That being said, though, Corey, once Fulmer came out to start the season and he was throwing that new sweeper, which is grading among the best sweepers from a just movement and stuff perspective in the league, it did pique my interest. And I did understand the thinking of giving him those opportunities. Since then, since seeing him debut that sweeper in his first 2 outings, the command has not been good. He's been getting the whiffs, but the command with the 4-seam fastball has been missing up. His command with the cutter has been missing leaky in, and you saw David Peralta hit him in that first blown save, and you saw David Peralta hit him again with these kind of like blue pits, and then you see the home runs coming. Is the command that's driving Fulmer's lack of success? But then you think in the back of your mind, if that sweeper is not perfected, right, then his future as a closer is probably pretty slim. So then maybe you just want to be a little bit more urgent. And to your point, put him in lower leverage situations and give someone else an opportunity. If I had to pick right now, I'd probably pick Alzolay on the roster to get that opportunity. But you can make an argument that maybe he's not the right guy. And it also shows a lack of urgency. And the real true candidate right now is Jeremiah Estrada for this team.
You believe that, I think, since spring training.
Yeah.
For me, like in the loss, where Outman hits the grand slam, you walk Jason Hayward in front of him. Like, that's just one of those things where it's just like, that it's just a really telling thing, right? Like, you walked a guy that has a 190 batting average in Hayward and then can't execute pitches against one of the hottest rookies in the league in James Outman. It just doesn't look good. The process is bad. His feel looks off. And as Kevin Wells, our wonderful producer from CHGO, says in the chat here, this is what I was going to say. I felt the same on Sunday today as I did in that first loss against the Dodgers on the road. Just let Keegan finish the game. He threw, I believe it was 28 pitches in 2 innings of work. And he can go longer than that. It's not like those were long, taxing innings. He looks good. Only 2 innings, 28 pitches. Just let him finish the game. You're down by 2 runs anyway. Like,
Yeah, his usage has
I
been weird, right? He's not going more than 2 innings. He only went more than
I
2
just
in
don't.
April
I
3rd.
felt that exact same way in the walk-off win that the Dodgers had in Los Angeles. And that one, to be fair to Fulmer, was sort of he doesn't have a ton of swing and miss stuff, so not a lot of hard contact, but they find holes, and that's how you give up runs, right? When the
Yeah.
guys put the ball in play, sometimes good things happen or bad things happen depending on your perspective. But I felt the same way in that game. Like, Keegan was rolling. Just let him finish the game. I'm just not sure. I think my biggest problem with the usage is this sort of insistence that Fulmer has to be in these spots.
Yeah.
The last several times he's been used, they're close games. The game is on the line. Like today, it's not a closing spot. It's not a tie game. But like I said, there is a huge difference in trying to score 4 runs off of someone that has the stuff like Bruce or Gratterall versus trying to score 2 runs.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to how David Ross handled that particular bottom of the 9th and how they could have executed that. But like, you had the bases loaded and 1 out. If that's a 2-run game, like maybe the strategy is different. Maybe not, because David Ross certainly isn't playing for 4 runs by leaving Nick Madrigal up there. But again, we'll get to that. Anyway, the key point, and you're seeing this a lot on social media, is just that this is not an elite roster for the Chicago Cubs, right? This is not a juggernaut of a team. This is not a team that can just relax and basically just stroll their way into 90 plus wins. Again, it's easy to go back to the 2016 Chicago Cubs that won the World Series.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
But that roster, again, we talked about this last time. That roster had Joe Maddon doing all sorts of things, right? Playing catchers in left field, having 3 catchers once Wilson Contreras came up, doing all sorts of stuff. But they could afford that stuff because that roster was so good. It was so much better than everybody else. They could afford to try stuff out and see what happens. This team can't afford that. They need urgency. Michael Fulmer is not a high pedigree closer. He's a former starter turned into a relief pitcher. I think he's got interesting stuff, and maybe he can round it into form with that sweeping slider that you've talked about. But he has already been involved in multiple losses for you on this team in close games. You cannot afford that stuff. You have to have a quick hook on these types of things. This team does not have the luxury for them to sit around and say, well, we want to give Fulmer the opportunity and see if he can round into our closer. You don't have time for it. You just don't have time for it. It's a competitive division, even if it's not a loaded one.